Hello and welcome to Vinyl Safari. My name is Sean Patterson. Today I am chatting with Chris Koster. Koster is a legend of the Kingston music world, both in his own right as an electrifying rock performer and singer-songwriter, as well as his tenure with the Glorious Sons, during which time they saw incredible growth in some of the most memorable moments in modern Canadian music history. Last year, Koster released his first full-length album since joining the Sons, entitled CK Stays Up All Night Smiling, which is soon to be followed up by a wealth of brand new music expanding on his eclectic style. I've been fortunate enough to play guitar with Koster for the last year, and with the release of his first new single, I can honestly say we are all in for a real treat. We had a great chat about this and so much more, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Here we go. All right, here we are. How's it going, Chris?
It's going well. How are you, Sean?
I'm very good.
Good to hear.
I'm glad to have you here. Now, I've known you really properly for about like a year and a half, maybe two. It was really the run up to CK Stays Up All Night Smiling that you approached me to be part of the band, and I was up until then like relatively familiar with your stuff. And mostly the Sun stuff, obviously, yeah. But it was really cool for me to actually dive into that. I remember hearing a lot of the record before it was released and just being absolutely blown away, first of all, by the writing quality and the sound quality and just the like real proper like raw rock and roll sound.
Oh, thank you.
And being able to like hang with you guys and learn how to play the songs and play them on stage and everything was a real like highlight for me for the last year. I just got to get that like out of the way early on.
As I told you guys, like I kind of handpicked that whole band as my like first choices on every instrument, and I remember saying to you guys, you know, like I want to work with people that, you know, I don't have to tell anything to twice, like people that take it seriously and, you know, that are gonna come in and bring their own thing to it. And I mean, you guys all just crushed it. It was great. I mean, like we've rehearsed probably 4 times in the history of that band. Like
it was
like a small
you can
room,
count
like,
them on the fingers of both hands,
yeah.
For sure.
And
yeah.
And in my little studio where like it's nothing, it's like I'm singing through a guitar amp and like you know, and then it's just so great to play with people that where it's like, okay, they get it. Like they're not learning in the room. They're coming in, they've learned the stuff. It's now we put it together. And when it's at that level and when you're dealing with people whose, you know, musicianship you respect so much, then I want people to put their flavor on things. I don't want you to play the guitar the way I played the guitar. I want you to play it the way you do. And so on each instrument in that band, it's like Curtis on drums is, you know, he's my musical hero. Keith on bass. I've played music with Keith since literally when I was 12 years old. He taught me how to play guitar. And then Josh is...
I didn't realize you guys went that far back.
Oh, yeah,
wow.
yeah. We were in our very first band together ever. I was the singer.
That's so cool.
Yeah. He's a phenomenal guitar player. And I put him to work on bass in this project. But over the years, I've put him to work on just about every instrument other than drums. So, and then Josh is like a musical genius, and it just like... he's got colors in his fingers that I don't even understand how he splits his brain to make those sounds, but it's beautiful. And yeah, so it's been a total blast. It's just a blessing to be able to play with people where, you know, everybody's taking it seriously enough that you can just fuck around and have a good time, because it takes a certain amount of discipline to be able to not, you know, so that you can have a good time because the work's done.
Yeah, for sure. I must say it was a real kind of learning experience for me, because I mean, pretty much all of my experience playing with other people and recording and doing any kind of like real music business stuff was sort of flying by the seat of my pants. Mostly I was the you know, the front man or guitarist in a band of local guys who were just doing it for the hell of it and kind of like discovering things as it went. And we ended up, you know, kind of figuring out what it meant to do music professionally in that capacity. But for me, coming into this outfit and playing with you guys was like, I was like, oh my God, these guys are all like fully legit, like professional guys, like with a level of experience that
fooled you.
It was, well, no, but genuinely it was a little intimidating, but also it's one of those, like, what do they call it? Like zone of proximal development or something like that, where I was like right at the edge of what I could manage to do.
Right.
And that was where I was learning how to play all these songs and learning how to work with all of you guys and cover a lot more sonic ground when it came to playing the guitar and singing than I'd ever had to do before. And that was like a real development thing for me. And it was so much fun too.
It's so important to be open as a musician to like whatever experiences are coming your way, because like me joining the Suns, that was what it was. It was facilitating somebody else's vision and, facilitating my own vision for as long as I did and banging my head against the wall a lot of the time with that stuff. It was great to just come in and be a guitar player and like sing some backups and play some piano if need be or whatever. But like and then, you get all these experiences and all these things that like shape the person you are and the player that you are. And you learn what you want to do, you learn what you don't want to do. And I think it's just, that would be my advice to anybody out there playing music, is just like, be open to whatever, play with whoever, like, and because you're only going to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I can definitely endorse that. That's been something I really, for the last couple of years, is I've started to realize, like, I mean, obviously there was a real hiccup in the middle of that. Like, there's no reason that we all should have had to be having this kind of conversation, or you and I having met each other in fucking 2023 versus when we naturally probably would have crossed paths, 2 or 3 or 4 years before. But, but I think, I think that's a big thing. Like, collaboration is massive, and I've fallen so often into old patterns and old, comfort zones and things, and gotten absolutely nowhere because, the best stuff comes out of that area of discomfort. When the discomfort kind of meets an opportunity or a point of inspiration that you wouldn't have come across naturally. Yep,
the universe has a way of providing things in right when they're supposed to happen too, and especially if you open yourself to that, that world.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about, because like I know a little bit about how the last record came about and whatnot, but just before we started recording, you dropped a bomb that some of the stuff we're gonna hear coming out very soon is actually older than a lot of that music. So tell me how long a lot of this has been coming about and what that process has been like.
Well, as I said, when I joined the Suns, it was like, that was just, I was in that band 8 years, 2 of which was the pandemic, obviously. So for the first 5 years of that band, there was no time to do anything except just tour and deal with what was exactly right in front of you. We just lived on a bus in an RV before that, and it was all about just like, what was exactly right in front of you that day. And then needless to say, I was not writing a lot of my own music. I was contributing heavily to the vision of that band, and facilitating somebody else. And then when it came, when the thing hit, the pandemic, no, just joking. But like when that hit, it was obviously like the whole world pumped its brakes, had to, and you had all this time on your hands. And then I was like, I just kind of like reminded myself of how much I loved writing my own stuff. And it just was tickling my brain in a way that like, just to be completely, I make all the artistic decisions. It's not about, 5 other people and like, what do you think and blah, blah, blah. And this guy like says this and this guy doesn't and whatever. It was like, I get to just, and because I play all the instruments, I get to make every decision. And for a control freak like me, that was kind of nice. And it just like lit up a part of my brain again that had been kind of dormant. As I said, kind of facilitating this other thing. So then it was great because it was kind of best of both worlds. Because then it was like, I was in this successful band and I could make my money at that and have great experiences in that and go, do that and blow people's minds in that band. And then I could also like tickle this other part of my creative brain with my own music. So that's basically how it came about. I didn't sit down to be like, I'm going to start a solo project and I'm going to make a record. It was nothing like that. It was like, man, I fucking love doing this. I forgot how much I love creating.
Yeah.
with nothing in the way either. You know, like you know, any band is obviously you contribute, and it's like it's not a one man army. You know, it's you got to kind of compromise and
Yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say it's collaboration and no small amount of compromise because you know
You got a bunch of
you're fighting
personalities
towards
involved.
a collective goal, but that means that you're rarely gonna get there with one person's plan. You know. I've kind of discovered that as well. Well, not a discovery, but something that I've realized as well about being in a band. As long as I've been in Oak Ridge Avenue for almost as long as you've been in this, or we're in the Suns, and like that's, I mean,
it's a good amount of time.
It's
two terms as a president.
Yeah, exactly. And you know you have a little bit of personnel turnover and whatnot, but beyond that, it's all just about, you know, are we into this? Are we all liking this still? Like what can we change? What new stuff is everybody into that we can tap into to keep it exciting and fresh and all that? And you never really know how it's going to come out. Like when we went into the studio to do our last record, the first session I did alone with Hawksley was like a real like eye opener into the process that we were going to go through in his studio, and also like we came out with this song that ended up not making the cut, but it was a kind of song that I look back on very fondly and love, and I think Hawksley was really into it, but it just didn't quite fit the mold of the band. And it still like made a big difference in how we approached the rest of the writing process, you know?
Right.
It was kind of a blueprint.
Sure.
But
yeah, and I mean that usually when you're making especially like an album and like one solid piece, there needs to be a point in the process where you kind of crack the code on, okay, this is what this is going to be. Not every song needs to sound the same, but you can use, you know, 3 or 4 tricks in production or in writing that are like popping up all over the record. I think that's what gives things a sound.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. On that topic, and weirdly I haven't asked you many of these questions just hanging out, but like for the last record, obviously that was made over a decent span of time, yes?
Yeah. Oh,
relatively speaking.
Well, I mean, yes, certainly the songwriting aspect of it. Like, I mean, a song like "Conditional" was, I think, by the time it came out, it was like 16 years old or something like that. Yeah, it's got its G1, but like, yeah, like so. In a lot of ways, that was like kind of a collection of like looking back at all of the stuff that I had done over the years, and then trying to like, you know, find what the sound of that record was going to be. It's like, okay, this song needs to be on there, song needs to be on there, and then I started kind of writing around that as well too. Like, so a lot of the stuff was brand new. A lot of it, as I said, went way back. Like Any Day Now is another one that's been kicking around for a long time, but
I love playing that song as well. Nice. It's so much fun to play live.
And like I recorded both of those songs. I've recorded, you know, 3 or 4 different ways over the years to land on what, you know, finally ended up on the record. And so some of it could be, I guess, considered like kind of a slow birth, but it was just when it was time to actually do it, it came together really, really quickly. Like I recorded this stuff very quickly, but yes, the span of the songs, some of them go way, way back. So
wow. It's interesting you say that, like, was Any Day Now, you said, went through like 3 or 4 different recordings, let alone the age of the song on its own.
Yeah, I did a version with Gord Sinclair that he produced, and with this band, the Spades, that were good buddies of mine, a great band out of Peterborough, and they're a 3-piece that just like shit hot 3-piece, and like we did this little experiment where Gord was on bass. That was the 3 of those guys and me, and yeah, we recorded both Conditional that way, Any Day Now, a couple other tunes, Tonight and the Rest of Your Life we did that way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So yeah, some of them go back a ways, and yeah, it was just interesting to see where they ended up.
So when you have a song like that, like I'm just imagining, I mean, like, like when you're prolific in writing and stuff, a lot of these songs just never see the light of day, don't even see the light of like your own mind the next day after making a demo or something or coming up with it, because, you know, there's a lot going on, or it just doesn't, the spark isn't quite there. With a song, with some of those songs that you mentioned that really stood the test of time but took that long to really come to fruition and come out on a record, what is it about like the writing process or songs like that keep you gripped enough to keep taking a stab at stuff like that and record them several times?
I don't know, because I don't go backwards very often. Maybe it was because, or maybe I did that time because it was like I knew that in playing with the Sons I had kind of amassed a new audience that was going to, you know, be there to hear some of this stuff that wouldn't have been before, you know. So it was almost like go back in my whole repertoire and be like, what are the best songs? And I'm happy to say now that like I'm writing the best songs I've ever written right now.
That's so exciting.
And like I'm so psyched for people to hear this stuff. Like I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm putting out a song at the first of every month for the foreseeable future, basically. And I just think, you know, on that last record, I really tried to do the whole industry route and pay a bunch of money to people at radio, a bunch of people that, you know, like get people at Spotify to help out and all this stuff. And it just kind of, I just don't think that really exists. It's just, unless you're fucking Beyonce or something, it's like you're whatever.
Well, so it's hard too when you're talking about paying your own money versus somebody else's. Like when it's a label or a publishing company or something where they have money to burn and they just need like.
But it's still all your money too, right? It's like a label is basically a bank loan.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And so, you know, to just do it a different way and not, I'm so over all that, everyone with their formulas and this is what you got to do and you put it out on a Tuesday. And it's fuck all that. It's so stupid. Nobody gives a shit. It's like you get your song out and fucking maybe people will like it. And if you like it, it's already successful. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing that puts the lie to all of the, oh, you got to do it this way or whatever is just the fact that so much of the music that I hold dear and listen to on a regular basis and have done for the last 10 years came out in some of the most unorthodox ways.
Yes.
I mentioned earlier before we started, again, like my ridiculous love for Bon Iver at the moment. Well, not at the moment, for a while, but I'm reminded of it because my buddy and I have been recording a podcast specifically about Bon Iver records. And there was no roadmap at all for those guys. They literally, the label that Bon Iver is signed to, like, exists essentially because of Bon Iver nowadays. Like, obviously they took a bit of a chance on them, but they are like the star artists.
You think if you took the White Stripes to a record label in 1999 or whatever, they'd be like, this is going to be the biggest thing. Those people are born seated backwards. They literally do not have a clue about what the tastes of the public are. They get one artist that happens to do well, like a White Stripes, that comes in and breaks through all of that, and it sounds like they made their song on a tape recorder in their garage. And all of a sudden, what do the labels do? We need 400 more of these. And then it's like,
there's a lot of laziness on the part of that. Well, it's pretty much all laziness at this point.
They're not music fans, most of them.
Yeah.
They're lawyers.
Money fans.
Anyway.
Yeah, we could definitely go down a rabbit hole on that part. But so we have the luxury of being able to listen to music within the podcast. Is there anything you want to spotlight, anything that you've been like listening to recently that is relevant to the stuff you've been making?
I'm the least like ear to the ground music listener ever, like, but because I've just been listening to the same
I listen to the same shit all the I'm terrible at discovering new music.
Like Prince and Kanye are my two biggest, and I feel like both of those guys are their own genre. Like, you know, if you like Prince, you're not going to like every song. He did every like, other than country music, he did basically every form of music over the years. So some stuff's going to hit you, some stuff's not, but it's like the balls of it. It's just like to just be like, this is what I'm doing today and this is what I'm giving you. And then Kanye is the same. It's just like every album is like a drastic jump from, you know, what he did the year before. And I love people with the bravery to do that and the creativity and the mind to do that, and not get locked into something that somebody tells them they have to do to be successful.
Yeah.
It's like,
I think that's what makes like a timeless legacy artist, honestly.
absolutely.
I think of like Bowie, even
Yep.
Hawksley, like
Definitely.
exactly the same kind of,
Hawksley's a
I
great
was going to say
example.
blueprint, but like anti-blueprint. Like it's just, I want to make this kind of album.
Yeah.
I don't care, you know, who likes it or whatever. But the fans of people like that are the most loyal,
Yeah.
down to earth, up for anything.
Because they know it's
music
genuine.
fans.
They know it's genuine. People can tell the difference between this like sheen that everybody's, you know, trying to do their little dance online and live their little second life and look at me. And people know the difference between a pre-interview and an interview.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's true.
they know when something's been discussed. That's why all these, you know, late night shows and shit, it's just like it's just vapid because people are just like, I understand you went on vacation soon and there was a funny thing that happened to you. Oh yes, wait till you hear the story. It's all so silly. It's just like that. I think that's why podcasts are, you know, having the life that they're having now, because it's two, three, 4 or 5 people sitting down and shooting the shit. And it's not preconceived. It's genuine. The conversation's going to go where it goes. And, you know, I think people find that refreshing.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that because that's a vote of confidence for what we're doing right this very second, which is great. Why don't we take a quick break and listen to something?
Sure.
I'll make it your pick.
Let's put on Back to Me, Kanye's latest record on Vulture's One. It's called Back to Me.
All right, sick.
It was a wild ride.
Yeah, I love it. I can't say I'm familiar, honestly. Like, it's a shame because everything I've heard, like musically, I love everything I've heard from Kanye. I've just never delved in. Although I must say, when we did Runaway, that was like a real highlight at that Broom Factory show.
Yeah, for sure.
That was like, it was a kind of like, it was a part of Kanye's catalog that I feel doesn't come across in the kind of stuff you hear most of the time, you know, on radio or whatever. But I mean, first of all, it's like a 9-minute song, so obviously you're not going to hear it on radio.
He's done a
as
lot
much,
of different stuff. Yeah, he's a creative dude. You can't pin him down.
Mm-hmm.
He just needs to find a way to come out of his shell a bit, and
I feel like he's not really telling us what he thinks.
Yeah, a little more outspoken.
Oh, geez. But yeah, so you mentioned as well, I don't know if it was on pod or off, but that you're kind of like leading in certain ways into kind of hip hop styles and stuff with some of the stuff you're producing these days.
Like, I mean, don't worry, I'm not rapping.
No, I'm just...
No, just some of the sonics of like, some of the, you know, drums and stuff like that would probably be thought of more in that world, I guess. But as we were saying before too, like, I love how everybody's just taking from everything now. Like, there's no, you know, when I grew up, it was very much like rigid genres of like, you know, if you liked Motley Crue, then you couldn't like Madonna. And if you liked, you know, the Beatles, then you couldn't like fucking whatever. And it's just so silly. It's like, I've always been a song guy. You know, even like when I covered Love Was a Battlefield, like there's people that like would never have heard that song that way because of the 80s production on the original version. And I think that like songs live in a production, but like they live outside of it too. Like there's many different ways to present an idea and a message to somebody. So, you know, that's why like MTV Unplugged was so successful, because I think that people understand the campfire.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that aren't musicians don't really understand, you know, the glossy magic of what production can do can sometimes like kind of kill a song for certain people for their tastes and stuff. So, you know, there's, as I said, there's there's a billion different ways to present an idea of a lyric and a melody, because that's what a song is at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's funny, like you say, production can kind of kill a song in certain ways. I feel like it can also kill the live experience.
Absolutely.
When somebody's expectations are set by a glossy production,
right?
And then they're presented with something that is more raw and warts and all and a little bit imperfect.
And I'll go one further, that it can even like kill the excitement for the artist or the band, because they think that they're tethered to this, well, it's got to sound exactly like how people know how it sounds. And it's like, I've always treated studio and live as two completely different animals. Like, I don't mind like bumping a tune up 10 beats per minute live if it feels more, or you know what I mean? It's like, I don't have.
And I noticed that as well as we were rehearsing too. Yeah. We were listening back and saying, well, this is where the record is. It really feels better at this pace.
Totally.
And just going with that, because the feeling of that is so important when you're playing live.
Two totally different animals. It's two totally different headspaces. When you're sitting at home or driving your car or sitting around with headphones on listening to a song, is a very different listening experience than standing in a room full of people with it coming off the stage. It's like, I've always approached my music that way. Is like, the record's a record, the live performance is a live performance. And that's why I would never get into like, you know, like limiting myself to, you know, playing to tracks or stuff like that. Like, I've dabbled with that in the past, and I probably will again for some of this new stuff of having, you know, some samples and some stuff running. But like, these arrangements where it's the same every single night, and like, you better not go off the Pro Tools session because it's 4 bars here, and if you do 8 bars, your whole fucking world falls apart. Like, no, thank you. Like, there's no.
It just takes all the wind out of the sails.
And it's just, we've toured with band. When I was in the Suns, we toured with a million bands. Like, I think we might have toured with one other band over the years that didn't use tracks. Like, it's so industry standard now. It's not even funny. It's just like,
that blows my mind.
Every single rock band, quote unquote, is playing to tracks, and you're like, I don't know. That to me seems like a day job. That seems like a desk job. Like, there's no.
It also would kind of, and I mean, I'm certain actually that I've seen several bands where that is the case, and it was an enjoyable experience. But
here's the thing:
knowing that somebody is doing something with no training wheels at all,
it's not that
would
I'm
make
like
it
some
more
purist that's like, that's cheating and that's stupid.
No,
it's not that at all. What I'm saying, because I've used tracks in the past, and as I said, I'll be using some for some of this new music coming out live. There will be some stuff that we're semi-tethered to, but I would never let it be dictating the arrangements where, like, you know, this background vocal flies in here. So if it's not like using a drum loop or something to like enhance something, whatever.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is, here's our 90 minutes. Now we go out and do the same thing every night of the week, like Groundhog Day. Like, I would blow my head off. Like,
yeah, I think we're talking about the same thing, really. Like, it's that there's a difference between having
listening to think that I'm like bad mouth or some purist of like, oh no, of course, I'm not like that at all. It's just that it's like, there's a way to utilize these things, and then there's a way to be kind of roped into like an arrangement where you can't, then you're just karaoke basically.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's, I think, what I was sort of getting at. Like, fortunately, I think, it's hard to know, obviously, but like I said, I'm sure there are artists I've seen where that is a part and possibly an integral part of the set, and the fact that you don't know is probably a testament to the fact that it can work really well.
I thought Oak Ridge was playing the tracks when I saw you guys.
That's adorable.
But it's like that. I mean, that's how good it sounds. That's how like smart the tones that you guys have all picked out to play over one another and with each other. It's like everything complements the other thing, and it's like, and it's a sound and it's a feeling in the room. And
well, that's very sweet of you to say. We do rehearse very much to try and recreate those recorded sounds as best we can, but we would never have it be to the point where you have to come in on a certain beat or the whole thing gets fucked,
Right.
because we value and have valued for such a long time the element of spontaneity and improv
Right.
where it's necessary.
And taking the thing somewhere that it didn't go,
Yeah.
on Tuesday night, that it didn't go on Monday night, like,
Yeah, like somebody fucking breaks a string or something and can't play the solo, and you add
or
an
my
extra
guitar
verse
goes
or
up for
something
8
to
songs at the break.
yeah, like all of these things can happen, and I don't think in many ways that they actually detract from the audience experience, and in a lot of ways I think it can add to it, because it's very human and
very spontaneous. It's very live. That's why people go to live
exactly.
shows.
Yeah, you don't want to hear robots at a live show.
Yeah, and you want to see with how the comedian deals with the heckler sometimes too,
Yeah, for sure. I will say I'm very happy that in most live situations, things are so loud that hecklers are genuinely not a problem. That is one thing that would keep me from doing stand-up comedy completely, because I actually quite love stand-up comedy, and I've often thought, as I think a lot of musicians do, like, oh, I wonder if I could do that, I actually heard Hawksley talk about it on his podcast, that like all musicians really secretly want to be comedians, and all comedians secretly want to be rock stars.
There might be something to that, especially Hawksley. I mean, his show he does a lot of
he's naturally, he genuinely could do either if he wanted to. But I don't know where I was going with that.
No, you wouldn't have the skin to be heckled.
Oh, yeah. It's the fact that if nobody is laughing, genuinely you aren't doing your job. Right. Like at a live show, you can finish a song and nobody claps, and you kind of like shake it off, like, okay, whatever. I guess they're
but
not into it, or they're all looking at their phones or whatever. But
well, stand-up comedy is by far the most brave and hardest form of entertainment.
It's an absolute one-to-one relationship between what you do on stage and what you get back from the crowd.
Yep.
It's nuts.
Just walking up there with a microphone and nothing else, and that's the other thing. There's this huge expectation from the audience, like they're expecting to laugh. Like, you better make me laugh.
Yeah.
I think it was Jerry Seinfeld said, like, it's the only profession where you're judged every 8 seconds or something. Like, they've done the math down to, like, on average when like the laughs are supposed to come. So
yeah, pretty much.
It's crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's wild.
I have a huge respect for anybody who does that.
Oh yeah, big time. I think that's one of the things I love about podcasts too, is that comedians and comedy is so intertwined with the podcast industry these days. A, because it's hilarious to listen to. B, because I think comedians use it as a way to work out material in like a low stakes scenario, and three, because like people want to talk to comedians. It's fun to be interviewed by somebody who has that spontaneity and that quickness and stuff.
Yeah.
It makes for such an interesting medium and an interesting form of conversation.
Laughter is the shortest distance between two friends.
That's adorable.
That's one of my favorite quotes. It's true.
It is very true. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more. I mean, we don't have to go on interminably here, but I want to make sure that we touch on anything that is worth touching on. We are going to listen to, by the way, the new single, which by the time this podcast comes out, the song will be out. So that's awesome. I have heard it already, and everyone's in for a treat. But on the topic of the new stuff that you've created, and I must say, genuinely, I've heard very little of it. Well, this is really all I've heard of it. How much? What can you tell me or tell the audience about like the new stuff that you have coming? Not to like spoil anything or anything, but maybe what sort of inspiration has been behind it. What you're kind of shooting at, if there's anything in particular.
I think that I was thinking about this the other night. I'm not only with music, but with my life, with my presence online, with all of those things, my relationship with social media, all that stuff. There's 3 things I'm looking for. I'm looking to be vulnerable, honest, and fearless.
Yeah.
And that's the recipe. And it can be challenging to allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to even know what's honesty to you, and like what is the truth to you. And you know, we live in a climate now where everybody gets talked out of, you know, you can't do that, you can't say that, you can't act this way, you can't, and it's like, fuck all that. I'll do what I want. And you know, you find your audience. And I think that people are very, very burnt out on this little dance that these industries convince people that you need to do to sell yourself, and you go get PR training and all this shit. People want to hear what somebody thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I like the way that you put it. Vulnerability,
honesty,
and fearlessness. That is the recipe, I think.
Yeah. Like we were talking earlier before we turned these mics on, but like, I believe it's an artist's duty to blow his or her own mind. I'm trying to make music that if I heard it and I didn't make it, I would pull the car over and be like, what in the fuck is this? Where do I get this? And, you know, it's easy to lose sight of sometimes when it's like, well, you got to have your chorus by 10 seconds in, and you got to do this, you got to do all these formulaic things that when I sit and think about it, I don't listen to music like that. I don't. Yeah. The songs that I like aren't like that. I'm the biggest lover of a pop music song, or like a 2.5 minute Beatles tune. It's just like, how do you do that? There's like no wasted darts, like just no fat on the bone at all. It's just straight to the source. Mm-hmm. And I try to do that with everything I do, but I refuse to formulaically talk myself out of other things that I love about what I do. And like, you know, I Don't Write Anymore, which is the song that's coming out first. I'm putting out a song on the first of every month for the foreseeable future. I don't know if I mentioned that, but that's what I'm doing. And I Don't Write Anymore. The reason I chose it to be the first one is because there's a danger to it. There's a mystery to it. It's a full minute before the lead vocal comes in. It is not in a hurry to get anywhere. It's a ride, and you're either on the ride or you're off. And I don't give a shit either way, because it's successful because I made it, and I'm so proud of it. That's where the success is, and that's where it should come from for every artist. Yeah. You should be trying to blow your own mind, and like, if you can do that, then it's successful. It's somebody else's deal after that. Like, I'm not a salesman. I've proven that time and time again. I'm no good at selling my music. It's not an artist. I don't think it's the same brain chemistry, a salesman and an artist. I mean, some people can walk that world and do both really well, and I respect those people. But I'm not one of them. I'm not somebody who can go and, you know, be this, you know, TikTok influencer. It's like that world is so foreign to me. I'm an old guy. It's like, yeah. I grew up in the fucking 80s. It's like I'm
a millennial technically, and I feel exactly. I mean, I guess technically we're probably both millennials. I'm like right on the cusp, but I still don't get a lot of this. I'm right on the edge of like the people who really should kind of understand that part of the industry and the way that supposedly dovetails with the creative pursuit. But it's just, it feels like the amount of effort and time that it takes to really do the social media thing and all of that properly can't really exist without severely subtracting from the creative pursuit. Huge. And that's a compromise I'm feel kind of unwilling to make. I you know, we try to find a balance and whatnot, but it's so hard to do. And I mean, like, I think that whole world vastly undervalues how much people need genuine things in their lives, because we're lied to all day long, every day. And when somebody comes and says something that doesn't sound like the same thing everybody else is saying, everyone attacks it and tries to silence it. And my belief is that you can tell when someone has hate in their heart, and you can tell when where people's intentions come from with things that they say.
And I don't believe I have any hate in my heart, and I want everything that I do, I want to make the world better. And I'm just going to speak from that place.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Just got to eat a bunch of mushrooms and sit with yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It works.
I think at least certainly present company and probably a lot of the listeners can agree that mushrooms are something that would do the world a lot of good.
Oh yeah, and they already have.
Oh yeah. And yeah. I mean, I don't want to go on. I mean, we could go full Joe Rogan and go on why mushrooms are the key to all the world's problems, but yeah.
Well, he's not wrong.
Well, listen, we're coming on about 40 minutes here. I'm feeling pretty good about this.
Right.
Is there anything else you wanted to highlight musically before we kind of dive into the single? I put you on the spot again for this.
Good. Hawksley's been coming up a lot, and
yeah. Well, so you are a fan, and we haven't actually talked that much about this. But this is a good point. First of all, when did Hawksley kind of come into your life, and what's your relationship to his music been?
So he would have come in pretty early on, like we actually, like the aforementioned Keith, an old band of ours. We actually opened for Hawksley at Alfie's Pub, which is like, for anybody listening, it's like a Queens university pub. I don't even know if it's still around. Anyways, and my band at the time, Color, opened for Hawksley, and nobody had ever heard of the guy. He was just like right out of the gate.
This would have been like 2000s?
What's the... like prior to Last Night We Were the Delicious Wolves, like what's the album before?
I mean,
that?
For Him and the Girls was the first one.
Yeah,
so that was 99 when it came out. So it would have been like probably 2000 we're talking about.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And he came and played Alfie's Pub, and it's when you could smoke indoors, and it was just him and a guitar. He had a feather boa, eye makeup.
Oh, God.
Not the guy that you see kicking around in Canadian music usually. He didn't look like a lumberjack. And all of a sudden it was like, I remember like being blown away by this guy. It was this like flamboyant, very Prince Bowie-esque, like kind of, just cool shit that I like. And this dude was throwing lit cigarettes at him. Like, and I remember Hawksley stopping and being like, are you fucking kidding me? Is this happening right now? And like, it was like a thing, like it was a tense moment. And so that's where he first came online, and to me, and then I just started getting into his music, and then I mean, like Last Night We Were the Delicious Wolves, Lover Fighter, when that came out, I was just like, oh, all in. Yeah. And
I'm so glad he marked that 20-year anniversary as well.
Yeah,
this past year. That was
and then like
huge.
There's another guy that album to album you never knew what you were gonna get, and I loved that. And is it Milk that you don't just want to break me, you want to tear me apart? What?
That might have been Meat.
Meat, okay.
Meat and Milk were like brother and sister records.
Companion albums.
Yeah.
I always get mixed up which is on which, but
I love those. Have you seen the vinyl copies?
No.
It's like Meat is like a hand drawn. It's like a white cover with a black pen drawn like cow with a massive cock. And a laser coming out of it.
Of course it is.
And then Milk is like the same, but it's like a female cow with udders and lasers coming out of the udders.
Well, you don't just want to break me, you want to tear me apart. Like there's a song of like, that's a guy not listening to anybody but himself and making a song like that, And I love that shit. That's like what I don't write anymore. Like honestly, could kind of fall into that category of like, I could almost say that it was directly inspired by that song now that I think of it. And because I like hearing people go off.
Yeah.
Like I'm a sucker for, kind of screamy vocals, especially if you can tell it's like, not, fucking, whatever, Skid Row or something. But I mean, I loved that shit growing up too. But like the gritty, like, when people go to those places sonically and vocally, where they're just like tearing their throat apart. That there's absolutely no doubt that was just a full expression of that feeling in that moment, and that song was the way that it came out, and it was like, that's it. Yeah.
I'm not going to edit it for anybody.
No, I'm not going
It doesn't need a radio edit.
Yeah,
Fuck that. It doesn't have a chorus. It's literally like one part and then another part. I love that song specifically.
Yeah, he sewed them together
Every
in
time
two
it
parts.
comes on, and I've listened to these records interminably through my whole life, but every time that song specifically comes on, I feel like selling my things. I'm like, oh shit, what is this? And then I forget that it's the same song. And then it you know, get halfway through and then it just
like literally slowing the
and
drum
these
machine
drums
down
going through guitar amps and shit.
Yeah.
And then just that incredible swell of that outro. I love that.
Me too. And like that stuff's out there, and like, you know, he's a vastly underrated artist, I would say, and probably one. Wow,
I think he's the underrated artist in Canada, as far as I'm concerned.
Maybe the best drummer in Canada for my money.
Can you say that again for Harrison? Because he doesn't believe me.
Well, that's my opinion, of course.
We've had this argument before, and I said I think Hawksley is the best drummer in Canada.
His pocket is. It's undeniable. It's
and the taste. There's a song called why am I blanking on this? What Would You Say to Me, Lord?
I know that too.
Between the Beautifuls. The first tattoo I ever got is the lyrics of that song on my arm.
Yeah, I remember before you were saying you were hiding your tattoos.
Maybe. Well, I've got a couple of them. He probably knows by now, but I tried not to tell him about them because it was incredibly awkward. Yeah. But his drumming on the outro of that song, it's a very I would say humbly produced record, like very true, very kind of not like an acoustic super folky thing. It's very tight and very well produced, but it's honest. And his drumming on the outro of that song it blows my mind every single time. The tastiness of it.
He's a monster. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we should listen to that. We should listen to I'm not just gonna. I don't just want to fucking, you know what it's called.
Yeah, you don't just want to break me. You want to tear me. Yeah, actually, that's great. Why don't we put that on, and then we'll reconvene for a minute and
I think
make sure
it'll kind
that
of go nicely into I Don't Write Anymore too, in the sense of like, I think for the listener you'll be able to say like, oh, okay, yeah, this is two white boys freaking out about something.
There's some shared DNA there for sure. All right, I love it.
All right,
we're back. So we just listened to Hawksley
freaking out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. I'm actually glad we listened to that because it's been a while since I've heard that particular record, and having listened to your new single as well, I definitely hear that similar kind of DNA in it. There's a slow burn kind of. Yeah. It's as if. There's some frustration obviously not exactly, but as if somebody is turning up a frustration knob and a compression knob and a distortion knob all at the same time throughout the 5 to 8 minutes. Yeah, you know, just all the way, just ramping it up to the end. Yep, he's getting something off his chest. Yeah, absolutely. I think he actually told that story at some point as well, back in that particular time. He's married now and has been for a long time, but apparently he said that was like a real fiery kind of breakup that happened, like, and he just got that one out. Yeah, and that's the way it turned out. Have you ever seen him play it live? I've never seen him do it live. That one, honestly, I don't think so. Yeah. No, I don't think so. The first show I saw was 2009 at Massey Hall, and that was like the Lost Man Licious era, like Between the Beautifuls, Lost Man Licious. He kind of did 2 sets of like twin albums in 2009 and 2010, and that was the first I saw of him. And honestly, most of the times I've seen him, it's just been solo or duo with Lonely. Same, yeah. Which is, I mean, I could see those every day of the week. I'd be happy. I like, those are great shows to go to. But yeah, so obviously we're going to finish up this one with I Don't Write Anymore. Is there anything more you wanted to say about that before we wrap up? I mean, I think the lyric comes across as pretty self-explanatory, but I mean, you'll understand this being an artist yourself. It's like it can feel like you're screaming into a void sometimes, where you're putting all this stuff into something and then you put it out and it just kind of, there's not that much coming back. Mm-hmm. And you can feel like you're like, you know,
you're just talking to yourself. And I think most artists go through that at least a few times in their career, and so I just wanted to get it out. I wanted to try to, again, just be honest about things that had been dealing with, and I think that if you're honest, there's enough people out there that are going to relate to it, because I think, life is a hell of a ride, and it's not easy all the time, and a lot of people are going through a lot of different things. So I hope this finds you out there, whoever you are. I hope it helps, because it certainly helped me.
Excellent. I love that. All right. Well,
yeah, man.
Let's listen to it. And
thanks for having me, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming by, man. I'm looking forward to hearing more of this and learning it and rocking out again.
Yeah, for sure.
It's gonna be a good time.
We're gonna play some shows too, and we're gonna melt some faces. I promise.
Yeah. A lot of stuff that hasn't been announced yet, but it's coming.
Absolutely.
Wicked.
Yep.
Cheers, man.
Thanks again.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Vinyl Safari with Chris Koster. I had a great time, and I hope you did as well. That new single is an absolute ripper, and if that's anything to go by, I know that the rest of this music is going to be just absolutely stellar. He's releasing a new track every single month for this foreseeable future. That is a lot of music, so make sure you follow Chris wherever you can, and follow the podcast as well on your preferred podcast platform, on Instagram at Vinyl Safari, and leave us a comment, a subscribe, a like, whatever you can to help. It really does make a difference. So we'll see you on the next Vinyl Safari.